Welcome back to the latest edition of The Meaning of Money. I'm here today with Peter Harris, who's making a big difference on the next generation. Excited to have you here, Peter.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So for those of you that don't know you as well as I have gotten to know you, and had a really fun time kind of learning more about what you're doing last time, give us kind of a, you know, um, thumbnail on your fund and what you're doing, because I think it's a pretty unique model out there.
Thanks. Yeah. So I run a fund called the University Growth Fund. We manage about $100 million across 3 funds. 2 of those funds are early stage venture and growth equity focused. And then the third one that is new for us is a new private credit fund that will also do private equity investing. We co-invest alongside a lot of other different funds out there and invest in all different kinds of companies. On the credit side, we do a lot of business services, home services, healthcare services. On the venture side, we do everything from consumer tech, like we were investors in Lyft and Spotify, to enterprise software companies like Toast and Carta, to AI companies like OpenAI and Databricks. So pretty broad range. The thing that makes us unique, though, and the thing that's the most fun about what I do is that we train students on how to do venture investing by actually letting them run the fund. So I joke that my job is to be there to get coffee for the interns, so that they can do the fun part of actually meeting with founders, asking hard questions, building financial models and investment memos, voting on which deals we should end up investing in, and then post-investment, rolling up their sleeves and helping our portfolio companies, and thereby gain a real rich, hands-on experiential education that they can then take with them through the rest of their careers.
So you take your hands off the steering wheel and you let them steer, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of like when you're learning how to drive and you're next to the instructor and they've got like that brake pedal. So we still have that brake pedal. We have some adult supervision, but for the most part, yeah. So yesterday we went down and toured the facility of a major defense company that we're evaluating, and walked the floor, their manufacturing floor. And we had a bunch of students and they were asking all kinds of questions of the CEO, who's raised tens of millions of dollars. And so that's the kind of experience that our students get.
That's incredible. How many students are you engaging in the fund at any given time?
So it fluctuates somewhere between 50 and 60. So we have 3 offices in Salt Lake City, San Diego, and Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And we draw from all of the schools in that region. And then we actually have a physical presence in each city where students can congregate and really get to know each other and build relationships, because we think that's super important while they're working on deals.
That's amazing. And how long is the tenure of the typical student that's, helping run the fund? Are they joining as a freshman or sophomore, or?
Yeah, so most students join after their sophomore year during that summer. We do recruit 3 times a year, so this is just kind of the average. And then I would say most students stay with us for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So they'll do the summer with us. If they like it, we like them, we promote them to kind of a new level of intern. And then we hope they stay with us until they graduate. So they'll typically spend their junior year with us. They'll go do another internship, oftentimes something that we help facilitate in many cases. They land, hopefully, a full-time offer by the end of that internship after their junior year. And during their senior year, they really, they got the job. So that's not really what they're with us for. In that role, we promote them to kind of more of a senior associate. And in that case, they're actually leading deal teams. They're meeting directly with founders and investors. They're being almost like a partner at a fund. And so that really helps them, not so much in their first job out of college, but actually is incredibly beneficial for the second and third job out of college. So
that's amazing. And what I think is so fun too is it at least from the outside, it feels like a big win-win. Obviously, the students are getting an extraordinary experience from that and learning hands-on in a very real way. But, I always joke with people who complain about something's not working. I'm like, well, do you have a grandkid somewhere that you can, in case somebody, in their teens or young 20s that because that, they're going to look at it with a fresh pair of eyes and from a different perspective. And I think that married with the experience that you and the other partners bring to the table is a really interesting way to engage that more so than just talking, because they're really involved. So I would imagine you get an even deeper level of engagement. So do you make them write when they're writing up their recommendation, memorandum? Are they writing it? Is AI writing it?
That's a good question. Honestly, there's a lot of tension right now between, I want our students to be AI native because I think you need to be in order to succeed.
Yeah.
The flip side is that experience, real world experience is what makes you the most capable at leveraging AI, right? If I just dump in a bunch of prompts and say, build me a financial model, but I don't actually understand the model, I won't know where to push back, where to fix, where to correct. A simple example of that is I spent, an hour and a half the other night building out a financial model to determine if I should buy more solar and put a battery on my house. And the model was pretty good at first cut, but it had a lot of mistakes. And it was only because I know how to do finance that I was able to push back, correct it, and really hone in on what the right answer should be. So at University Growth Fund, what we tell our students is, we've always said this, is you need reps. You need to own what goes down on the paper. You need to understand it. And you should be leveraging AI not to outsource the work, but to accelerate and complement and teach yourself. And so, sometimes students do that. I would say our best students do that, and they get really good really fast. And others, we spend some time with them, helping them reassess their priorities. So,
look, I think the same formula applies for adults. When I think of, if you think about your tasks of A, B, or C priority in terms of impact or importance, an A item, I'm going to be way more intensely involved in the details of it. And on some projects that come to my mind right now, there's one document I'm thinking of that I went through 25 drafts until it was really perfect and had multiple LLMs competing with each other and identifying problems or weaknesses. But I had to still be the person responsible for, do I accept this? Do I reject this? Do I want more research to better understand it?
Yep.
And it's, there's no question, in my opinion, that the output was way better than if it had been just me by myself or, one of the AI tools by itself. But it takes work, to really produce that best outcome. And I agree with you. I think you have to be embracing and learning how to use these tools. That's like any other tool. It takes reps, simple as that. And it's, so I think one practice that might be fun to adopt, and I think a lot of firms should think about this, is when I was an analyst, obviously we would build models we didn't have preset models. It was at a boutique M&A shop, and we needed a model. We would build it from scratch.
Yep.
And that was a total pain in the ass, but you learn a lot that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, but some of these models get big, and so what some associates or some partners would make the analysts do, which I think is a really great practice, is they would make you sign your name to the output.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would sign your name on the sheet of paper that got printed out, as saying, I own every number on this page. And there's something about signing a piece of paper with your name before it goes out that causes you to stop and think, did I double check, triple check this?
Sure, I want to put my name on that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because what happens is you'd be in a meeting with a Fortune 50 CEO and be you and the partner and the CEO. And let's be honest, right? I mean, I was at that point 1 or 2 years out of school and invisible to the other two people in the room until that moment in the meeting where the client points at a number and says, that can't be right. And then all of a sudden, all eyes turn to you and your heart's going, and you're up till 3, double, triple checking that. And, if you did it right, you'd be able to explain and say, hey, I know it didn't look intuitive, but here's what's going on. Here's why that, is happening here. And they're like, oh yeah, right. And they turn around and then you're happily invisible again.
Yeah.
but when you sign your name to something, there's something about that formality that says you own it. Because now if there's an issue or AI screwed up and you didn't, hey, you owned it. I don't care what combination of you and the tool did it. I'm holding you responsible for that. And it's a simple act, but I think it's symbolically an important one. Because I think anybody that uses any tool, not just AI, blindly is, what could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, at a minimum, you just don't understand what's going on. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how can you make good decisions if you don't know what's going on?
No, it's funny. It in some ways I've always described money as being an amplifier.
Yep.
Brings out more of who you are, whether that's good or bad or both, or you give a $500 million to a Mother Teresa, she's going to do more good with that. You give it to somebody that only cares about the next, buying the next Ferrari. Nothing against Ferraris or beautiful cars, but they're probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
I think of AI similarly, Peter. I mean, it's kind of an amplifier, right? I mean, the more effort you put in, I feel like the faster, the bigger you can go. But
yep,
you put in a little effort and you do really lame prompts, you're not going to get really great output, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and what I try to remind my students is that if, you're outsourcing all of your critical thinking and the hard work and everything else to AI, then what is it that an employer is actually hiring you for? They're not going to pay you anything. They're just gonna buy another, package of AI. They're going to spend more money on tokens because you're not adding any real value.
No.
So, yeah.
But if you think critically, I find that one of the joys for me in the last years, I would actually argue AI is forcing me to think more.
Interesting.
Both creatively and, I don't know what the right word is, but skeptically or maybe critically is the right word. Creatively and critically. Critically, because you and I know it's not perfect, and we have to be responsible for the depth or the quality of the result than the analysis. So what else am I need to be thinking about? Where could there be an error? Where do we need more proof? Where's the weak link? What am I not thinking about? And I have more time to think critically if it's doing more. And likewise creatively. Like there's some times where I spun up, a project to do something that worked really great. And I'm like, why didn't I do this 3 months ago?
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't think about it. You also hear people say the opposite, but who knows? You mentioned that you're investing in the fund and AI. What aspect of that, or what does that look like for you and the student teams? What kind of AI? How do you think about AI from an investment standpoint today?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a really interesting time to be a venture investor. So I've been doing this now for like 17, 18 years. And it feels like every time Anthropic comes out with a new product, I go through a mini, crisis because I'm like, man, everything that I thought I knew has kind of gone out the window. And so like, I'll give you an example. I was at a demo day a couple months ago, And at that demo day, every single company was just crushing it. They were doing great. They had real customers, real revenue. They were solving real problems.
Hmm.
And I talked to a bunch of the other VCs at the end, and we all agreed. We're like, hey, if this had happened 4 years ago, we would have been all fighting tooth and nail to get into every single one of these deals. And at the end of this pitch day, we were like, I don't know if any of these companies still have a business in 5 years. They might, but they probably won't have a venture backable business, you know? And so that's been one of like the big challenges, is that AI has, it's enabled the people that really put in the time and the effort to really amplify their productivity. But you're also seeing that on a company perspective. And so you're starting to see this skew of the power law in venture capital, which is basically a few companies generate most of the returns. It's getting even more skewed towards fewer and fewer companies. And we all know like the clear examples. I mean, you just look at Anthropic, OpenAI, and SpaceX, right? And how big those companies are and how much venture funding is flowed into those companies. And so like you're seeing it in real time occur there. And so it's just been like a lot more challenging to find companies where, we have a high degree of confidence that in 5 years, that company will still have another 5 to 10 years ahead of it, because, we have to be able to sell it to somebody else who believes there's a future. And so what that's meant is that we either are investing into companies that we believe have some sort of like real strong moat, and they are kind of foundational, or their infrastructure. So that's why we made an investment in OpenAI, and we're also investors in Anthropic and Databricks, for example, because we think those are kind of just like foundational infrastructure companies that will support this for a long time. And then we've gone kind of the full opposite end of the spectrum, which is we're investing in companies where we think AI only accelerates and helps, largely due to external factors that create that moat. So a really easy example of that is like healthcare. So if we're investing in healthcare comes with it's highly regulated. There's, a ton of laws around it, licenses, all kinds of things that make it hard to compete in healthcare. And so if you can use kind of these external walls to keep competitors out, you can use AI internally to really drastically improve margins and other things. And so, a good example of that is we invested in a company called Nest Health. They send a care coordinator into the home of Medicaid families. They do assessments on all the kids, and they drastically increase quality of care while simultaneously reducing cost on the system. And so in that case, like AI is not going to be replacing that anytime soon, right? You need someone to physically see the environment that these kids live in, do physical exams, all that kind of stuff. But AI can be a real accelerator to that business in terms of helping them be more efficient, keep track, have better analytics, a bunch of those types of things. So we're kind of like either end of the spectrum. We either have to believe like, hey, this is, got a lot of room to run and can be a very large and successful company, or it's got to be very insulated from AI.
Can you give me an example of a company that, without mentioning specifics, so we don't want to put anybody out there on the spot, but an example of a type of company that where you saw, hey, they got real revenues. They're they look 4 years ago we would have been all over them, but today we're given the rate of change, not 100% sure they're going to even exist in 5 years.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So we met this one company's growing crazy fast. Single founder built it from 0 to 1 million, and then hired a few people and took it from 1 million to 9, all in the course of like 18 months, 20 months, something like that. So
that's fast. Yeah.
Really fast growth. And they operate in kind of the education space. And so like, obvious reasons why we would look at that, right? We care about education and super fast growing business. But it wasn't clear to me that, there won't be 50 other competitors that spin up a vibe coded, solution that start competing with that company.
Yeah.
And look, I think at the end of the day, I don't believe that AI is going to destroy all software businesses. I think the SaaS apocalypse that everybody
That was one of my
calls.
next questions I wanted to ask you. So yeah, I'm glad you're talking about this.
So I think the SaaS apocalypse really applies to venture-backed SaaS businesses. But I actually think we're going to see a massive explosion of SaaS. The difference will be, and I think this is the case for a lot of those companies that presented at that demo day, is it used to be that if you wanted to build a great SaaS business, you had to raise venture capital because you had to go out and acquire customers. You had to build the code, and you spent a lot of money on developers and a lot of money on sales reps.
Not anymore.
And not anymore, right? And I think now what you'll have is, a bunch of people that own businesses that are doing single digit millions, probably like pretty decent margins, like 20% EBITDA margins. They're cash flowing a couple $1 million off of that. And it's going to be a phenomenal business to own. I would love to own those types of businesses, right? But those aren't the type of businesses I can invest in as a venture investor, because they're never going to have that, 100x potential return. And so like, I think that's one of the interesting paradoxes about all of this, is you were talking earlier about how like it's allowed you to be more creative. For me, like, I'm just able to do a lot more stuff that I find interesting and fun. And like, whether it's art related, or I'm building apps for my own use or other people's use, or I'm like helping my mom AIify her law practice. Like, there's all of these things that like I couldn't have done before because I didn't have enough time, and I didn't have the tools, and I didn't have the knowledge. And now I can. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people like us, right? And there are a lot of people like us that are building really interesting things, and we're just going to see kind of this proliferation of opportunities. So
I I tend to agree with you on that. I also think that the larger software companies have been able to maintain margins for a long time, um, and kind of reached a plateau of value they were adding.
mm,
And
yeah,
and I think what's going to happen is, to your point, you know, new competitors are coming out that are essentially doing the same thing as well, maybe in their minds better, but for a fraction of the cost. And I think some of the bigger companies are gonna have a tough time trying to, they're gonna have to really kind of ask themselves, hey, how are we really adding value?
yeah,
Um, and the other related thing I see in all apps in our app stack, everybody's coming out with a new AI feature.
yeah,
A lot of overlap. Not everyone's going to succeed. I mean, I must have 5 different things that want to take notes now whenever I start a meeting. No, no, no. And but some of these are um, not really adding a ton of value. Like they
yeah,
feel they have to add the AI to it, but it's not really moving the needle. And I feel that we live in a world of so much noise that to really have that sustainability, you've got to be moving the needle, not just be better in some what near-term technical sense or what appears to be better, but really addressing a real pain point in a material, human pain point in a material way that lands. I don't see enough people out there, in my opinion, really focusing on that. And I think there
yeah,
is a big difference between, hey, we're meeting a real unaddressed pain point versus, oh, this is just better. So I think it's going to be a dogfight out there for a little while.
yeah.
On your students, what are, I could imagine people um, learning about your model, and because it's so different, maybe it's human nature. People want to doubt, but and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but you were sharing with me in our pre-call. I mean, you guys have achieved some really fantastic results. If you're comfortable sharing, kind of just broad sense, how, what are those, and what are, are there 1 or 2 things from your experience in guiding and teaching and leading students that positives that have come out of it, or surprise upside that came out of it that maybe you weren't expecting in the beginning, that is now something you really celebrate and enjoy?
So the thing that I love about what we do is that it creates this really amazing virtuous flywheel. So we bring in students, we give them this experience that's, one, it's really hard to get experience in venture capital.
Very hard. Yeah.
And so we give them that experience, and then it's very rich experience. So like it's not uncommon for a student to come back and be like, I thought all internships and I thought my full-time job was going to be like what working at UGF was like. And like, it's not. Like I went from being like kind of up on the tier of the ladder all the way back down to the bottom, right? Nobody cares what I think, so we give these students this like amazing experience that then translates into them making about 120% more than their peers at graduation. They land incredible jobs, many of which, they frankly would not have had access to that opportunity without our program. And so that's great. And then because we put so much time and energy into creating this great experience for students, I can go and talk to founders and be very authentic about the impact we're having. And it turns out that founders, by and large, are great people. They want to help, they want to support, they want to like make their dent in the universe in a positive way. And so when I'm like, hey, help our students, right, by letting us give you money, invest money in your company, right? They love that, right? And so we're able to get access to really compelling deals. And then that in turn allows us to generate great performance. So we've made about 100 investments out of our funds. We've had about a fifth of those go public, a bunch more get acquired, and we're still in early innings, so there's a bunch more to be had there. And so then our investors get good returns, so they're happy. They want to put more money into the next fund, which allows us to impact more students. And then the side benefit of that is our students are now going out and working at amazing places, a lot of which are working at great funds. And so they are now starting to send deal flow back to us. So the reason why we were able to invest in companies like Lyft and OpenAI and Databricks was because those deals were sourced by former students of ours that said, hey, I want to give back to the students that are there so that they can have a great experience like I had. You guys got to come in on this deal. This is an amazing company, blah, 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 and get us access to those opportunities, which then just further compounds the overall cycle.
Yeah, when I think about money and what it unlocks, what I really love about your story and what you guys are doing is that it, obviously, money is great for what money buys, and the returns you're earning help your LPs and are good, for you as well. But to make that kind of a difference, and to see, like you just said, how it can come back around and create this virtual circle. For people like you that are modeling that, I think it's so powerful for people to see that, because sometimes there's this perception that doing good just costs you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Giving for the sake of giving is good. That's okay. That's not a bad thing.
For sure. 100%.
But it can be really exciting when you get to both exercise your superpowers, which I know extend beyond just getting coffee, way beyond. And in that, both create something that is economically sustainable. And by the way, I think for capitalism to work in its best expression, needs to be sustainable. Therefore, profit is important.
Yep.
But in this case, it keeps fueling that give back component in a big way. And what a neat gift too, at least from my perspective, to plant that idea in these kids' heads early, that they get to see that they can make an impact now. Because again, a lot of people think, when I retire, when I sell my company, when I'm 65, then I will begin to give back. But I hope everybody watching this today, like, one of the big takeaways is, hey, you don't need to wait. You could be a sophomore in school. You can be, in your 30s and 40s. building a venture capital business that, yes, is you know, very much needs to be return oriented, but equally so, creating that impact. How what's your take on? I mean, what are some things in the realm of money that you think about when you think about what it unlocks for you, or how you see it unlocking for your students?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I love what you said earlier around money is kind of an amplifier. A friend of mine posted on LinkedIn recently. He's like, does money create more happiness? And put up this chart and showed how it increases up to like $500,000 or something like that. And I said, exactly what you said, which is that it just amplifies whoever you are. So if you're an unhappy person, it's going to make you more unhappy, right? If you're a very happy person, it will amplify the things that bring happiness to your life, whatever those things are. So for me, what money has done for me is like, I love traveling with my family. So, and giving my kids new experiences and the opportunity to see new cultures. I have done a lot of work internationally, particularly with the International Rescue Committee. And so for my 40th birthday, I threw a giant Lego party for all of the refugees in Salt Lake City with a local refugee organization. So I don't know, like, I think there's a lot of things like that, that money can really enable, that bring a lot of happiness. And then, I think the other piece is, even if I think about our fund, right, the better we do, the more we can raise, the more resources we have, the more students we can impact. And then that in turn, like I mentioned earlier, right, like more students that we impact means more students out there that are then giving back to the students that are in our current program. So yeah, I think sometimes in business we get really focused on this, like, eye for an eye, I win, you lose mentality. But what I've realized over time is that in almost all circumstances, there are some that where this is not the case, but in most, if you're creative enough, you can find a win-win solution where everybody comes out better and then wants to play the game with you again. And then that's where it really compounds, and you can build not just like meaningful money, but also kind of meaningful friendships, experiences, and accomplishments that make life rich. And to your earlier point around not waiting, like when I started working at this fund, like I took a massive pay cut relative to even the students that were graduating, but I was happy to do it because I just love what I do. And to me, life is short. So I would rather do as much as as much things as I can that I love, as long as I can, and not wait until I'm really old to start enjoying life. So
Cheers to that. 200%. Hey, so I got to ask you before I let you go here.
yeah.
You mentioned art. Is a hobby? Do you do the art yourself, or what? Tell me more about that. That sounds fun.
Well, I wish I could say that I'm like this amazing artist. I'm not, but I always have lots of like ideas. And so I will just play around with the AI to create the things that I'm imagining in my head, and that I don't have the skill to draw. I wish I did. But what that translates into is I make, very custom birthday cards for people in my
Ooh.
family. And I spend probably a decent amount of time on it to get it just right. So yeah, I wish I was like, a master painter or musician or something like that. But I think just like the ability to start creating things, whether it's art or software or whatever, is something that really drives me. So
That's awesome. It reminds me of the first time I don't know if it was like Apple IIe or whenever it was, when like a graphics program came up where you could like literally design like a card you could print out and then fold it. And I thought that was just so cool. And of course, you had like a couple hundred graphics max. I mean, it was super limited back then. And now it's your imagination that's the limit.
Yep.
but so fun. Well, Peter, great having you today. Really admire the work you're doing, and look forward to staying in touch and hearing about more successes of yours and your students. And great reminder that life is short, so put that extra push in to figure out how it can be a win-win, have more fun along the way, and both be successful in your core business, but make a big difference along the way.
Yeah. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to talk with you today. Really fun conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again, Peter.
All right. Take care.